So if you're here, you're interested in relationship training. My name is Ben Goreski, and I'm here to share with you about this program, the Conscious Relationship Council, to tell you a little bit about it. And I'm here with my co-facilitator, Nick Solacek from Highly Successful Couples, and he's going to join me in sharing some of the information about this program. Nick, good to be here with you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Nick and I run the Conscious Relationship Council training for men, and we're going to share a bit about the program. We're going to talk about the tools that we use. We're going to talk about why we use them, why relationships are so difficult, why men struggle, and why this format that we've set up very on purpose works so well. We're also going to share about some of the outcomes that our clients have had. We've run this program a half dozen times already. And so if you're struggling in a relationship, or if you're just out of a relationship and realizing that you had a big struggle and you want to change some of your patterns, some of the ways that you show up in relationships, some of the partners that you attract, you want to break some of these patterns, stick around. And we're going to share what we've learned throughout the years of studying material from various relationship teachers. And, this is an amalgamation of everything that Nick and I have learned and practiced in our own relationships. So let's start by talking about the challenges that men face in romantic relationships. Okay, so typically men come to us with a certain set of complaints or struggles. Your struggles that you're experiencing might have a unique story, but they're not terribly unique. A lot of men really struggle with the same kind of stuff. Perhaps you've succeeded in other areas of your life. You've got it together in career. You figured out how to make money. You've got a foundation for your life, but you're finding that the realm of relationships is quite difficult, that you're still struggling there, that you seem to be missing some piece. And like nobody taught you how to do it. And so you don't know what foundation to lean on. You just kind of absorbed what you saw in your parents and maybe what you didn't want. And you had some early relationships that proved what you didn't want, but you're not sure how to get what you want. Perhaps you feel misunderstood, unappreciated, or emotionally shut out, no matter how hard you try. A lot of men try really hard in relationship to please their partner and to get the outcome that they want. They get really solution focused, and it seems to not land. They seem to constantly run into complaints that the way they're approaching it isn't working, especially when they have a feminine partner. Perhaps conflict is one of the things that is a big block for you in your relationship, and that resolving conflict in a good way where you come back together after it and say, oh, wow, that made us better, seems like a fantasy. And for a lot of people, conflict builds up, resentment builds up over time, one conflict after another, small ones piling up into one big pile. And finally, that huge pile of grievances from one person or perhaps from both becomes insurmountable and can feel like it's crushing. That's very typical for a lot of men. Maybe you feel like you're walking on eggshells, holding things in, holding back from your partner, like you can't fully share your truth with them because it'll cause conflict or it'll cause a blow up. Maybe you crave independence and space away from your partner, and also that closeness that we all want, that intimacy that we all want, but are struggling to find the balance between the two of those things. Like when there's distance, maybe it's not okay for you or for your partner. And when you're close, one of you is not feeling okay. And so there's always like somebody who's not okay with the level of closeness. And the relationship sometimes can feel more like managing logistics and a household, managing chores than, passionate flow and love that I think most of us have touched on in our lives. But we enter into a phase in relationship where all of a sudden it doesn't feel that way. And it's really not all of a sudden. It's a gradual thing. We sort of drift into that place where we're feeling a loss of that love that's there in the beginning. Okay, so Nick's going to chat a little bit about what's possible here now that we've established like the things that guys tend to struggle with, like what is possible for men.
So generally, we're having a similar experience here. There are some similar patterns that all men experience in their relationships, and that presents some common growth opportunities for all of us. The first of which is simply learning how to express what we're actually feeling, to clarify what it is that we need and learn how to ask for that in positive terms without turning it into a fight or a shutdown or some sort of nervous system response that makes us feel disconnected and misunderstood. At a very high level, emotional safety is one of the most important qualities for any relationship. Safety and aliveness are two of the things we teach men about in our program. Every couple wants, craves, and desires this, whether they know it or not. And if we learn how to build it, we can learn how to work with conflict when it comes up, because conflict is part of every relationship. There's going to be tension, there's going to be moments of misunderstanding. And what you will ultimately discover, what I have discovered, is that conflict is a growth opportunity waiting to happen, that there is a deepening that is possible for all couples once they get a new attitude, a new philosophy, and learn how to approach these situations, to learn about why this stuff happens in the first place, instead of just living a resigned life or living in a kind of disconnected state. It's like a parallel marriage where we live together, we sleep in the same bed, but we kind of live separate lives. In general, reigniting the spark, we need to learn how to shift from sometimes traditional roles or functional roles into a place of real emotional intimacy and shared aliveness, which includes shared vision. So instead of just feeling like, oh, this is just how things are, this is how you are, or I have a frozen picture of you in my mind, actually getting creative and talking about how good could this get? What is the best possible outcome for us? How do we want to live? What kind of roles do we want to play in the household? What do we need from each other? How can we love each other better? And these inquiries are powerful. They shift our brain, they shift our nervous system from a place of shutdown, hopelessness, helplessness, into a shared agreement about what we can create together. And along the way, we restore a sense of integrity, we restore a sense of partnership and collaboration. And these are all very important things for couples to have. Also, generally, we can develop confidence in our ability to lead. And this includes vulnerability, clarity, our own subjective truth, and bringing our own grounded presence, not leading with an iron fist, or that hardened military type man who might miss his partner's feelings because he's so focused on how he wants things to go, or telling his partner what to do all the time. We need to be able to create space for both freedom and commitment. Most guys I talk to, they want the sense that they are free to be themselves and make their own choices within the commitments of the relationship without self-abandoning or abandoning your partner, right? Because one of the things a lot of us fear is that we have lost ourselves, or we are going to lose ourselves. We're not going to be able to do the things we want to do. We're not going to be able to spend time in the way we want to spend it. We have to make all these sacrifices and compromises in order to make our partner happy. And there's a more evolved and transformative approach to relationships that we talk about in this program. So in general, stop winging it. We've got a lot of bad ideas, old myths, traditional ideas about how things ought to be. And there's an opportunity here to be a lot more creative. And in this program, we're going to give you the tools and the guidance and the reps to navigate love with the same intention you might bring to other areas of your life. Most of us have a plan for our body, our bank accounts, our social media, or our weekend, but we do not have a plan for our relationships.
Yeah.
And if you do not have a plan, you really set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, guys, I used to think that a conscious relationship, or a great relationship, you could say, I didn't even know what the word conscious relationship was 15 years ago. A great relationship was something that you go and find. You go find, in my case, a woman who just fits well, and then it's good, or it's something that you manifest. You like dream and write down and make a vision board about the woman, the type of woman that you want to be with, and she shows up, and then you're good. What I now realize is that a great relationship is created. A great relationship is forged through time with work, And in order to do that work, we need the map and we need the tools. And that's made the difference in my life, is like digging into the understanding of what a conscious relationship is, or what a healthy relationship is, and what an unhealthy relationship is, so that I can sort of like check myself and check our relationship along the way. And what are the tools that I need to make my relationship good and healthy and conscious? And what are, what happens when it's going the other way? I need that mental framework to sort of know where I'm heading. So before we get deeper into that, I just want to share a few testimonials with you guys and things that other men who have taken this course have said. So you can read some of these testimonials that are on the screen, but honestly, my favorite one is this one from Jason, who said, "I have a greater depth of emotional maturity when the triggers and patterns are happening. I feel lighter." And maybe I love that one the most because I can relate to it so much. When I was 30 and I met my now wife, I was a trained counselor, but I was still actually fairly emotionally immature, and I didn't quite have the emotional vocabulary that she had. I felt like she could sort of talk circles around me when we were navigating conflict because she knows her emotional realm so well, and I felt like in some ways, yeah, she could like outsmart me, and I didn't quite have the vocabulary to meet her. And when I was triggered, I would shut down, and I really did feel heavy. And so Jason here talking about like, oh, I have like a more mature understanding of my emotions and her emotions. And I'm able to sort of hold space when the triggers are present for myself and for her. I feel lighter, and that lightness, that makes a huge difference in relationship when things are getting heavy. So yeah, other men have said that they feel hopeful and an increased sense of confidence, more of a sense of knowing what to do next, right? Because you can lean on the tools, because you have a map. Like I just spoke about, feeling of understanding of their inner world and their inner truth. Guys really like, they try some of these tools and it really changes their mind, and it also, this stuff also applies to family. Guys come into the course sometimes single. We usually have about a third of the men in our course are single. And they go and practice some of these tools with their brother, sister, mom, father. And it makes a big difference in those relationships too, because all of our relationships need some of these tools, especially the high stakes ones. The higher stakes a relationship has, the more useful these deep tools that create good connection, they're going to change. It's going to make a big difference. So it changes your ability to navigate difficult moments, and to lean in a good way. So we're going to share from here on out. We're going to share some of the frameworks of understanding of like why relationships are the way they are. And these are some of the frameworks that we're using in the Conscious Relationship Council program so that you can get a feel for it. The foundation of this really is what we call conscious relationship principles and imago theory. You don't have to know what that is right now, but if you take the course, you will know what that is by the end. And really the idea here is that, we can be kind of unconscious the way that we do relationship. We just do what we've learned in the past or what we were programmed by our parents. And the whole journey here is about waking up and bringing our conscious selves, like, what do I really want, and what is my, in a way, like my ultimate purpose in relationship? What is it? What am I here to do here? It's about waking up to that and bringing that awakeness, that consciousness into our relationships, essentially as a growth vehicle, as a personal growth vehicle. So yeah, let's talk about why relationships are hard and what we can do about it.
So generally there are challenges. Some of them we've discussed. There are things that we're up against, bad ideas that we've got. We've got philosophies that are limited or missing information and perspective. And one of the things that, I'm often saying about relationship is that it's not a question of whether you have something to work on as a person. The only question is what. And the same thing applies to your romantic relationships. The only question is, what do I have to work on? What is my current growth opportunity? You will not get all the work done in a single lifetime. I don't believe that anyone will. But there is a lot that we can heal, a lot that we can learn, and there are significant and transformative changes that we can make to our experience of romantic love. The problem is that love brings up everything that's unhealed. So intimacy with another person is a trauma trigger. It is going to hit the hot buttons. It is going to touch aspects of yourself that are unhealed, unresolved, old wounds from the past. All of your fears will get activated in a romantic relationship in one way or another. And this is very confronting. It is something that is nightmarish and terrifying. As my mentor likes to say, the honeymoon, the transcendent blissful merging turns into a nightmare. And why is it that that happens for so many people? Why is it that the divorce rate is so high? Well, we're not taught. We don't have classes on this stuff in school, college, university. We lack role models. And it doesn't actually matter how many books you read, because at the end of the day, you need to actually be able to integrate these teachings. And that's one of the reasons that our program has been effective, is that we're meeting live in person. We're having conversations week to week, and we're actually practicing. We're getting our reps in during these meetings. We happen to, have an expectation that love should be easy, that if we're meant to be, if this is really true love, that things should just work for us and things should be effortless. And when we have the experience that that's not the case, that this is really heavy or this is really hard, we believe the relationship or our partner is broken, or that something is wrong with us. And we get very confused about what's going on. And this is just a short list of the many challenges that, we're up against. It also happens to be the case that, as Ben was saying, without awareness, unconsciously, we bring unmet needs from childhood into our adult relationships. We expect our partner to meet those needs, but they don't know anything about them. And they expect us to meet their unmet childhood need, but we don't know anything about their needs. And so what happens? We get anxious. We get anxious about not getting our needs met. I'm afraid you're not going to be the partner that I want you to be. I'm afraid that you won't love me the way that I want to be loved. I'm afraid that, you'll never be able to break this bad habit. And all kinds of other power struggle experiences, which we meet with generally two ineffective solutions: hiding and denying, or fighting and arguing. And all that does is create more negativity in the relationship, more misunderstanding, more distance, and resentment. So we experience, as a result, repetitive, unproductive conversations that basically go nowhere. Many of my clients refer to this as cyclical marathon conversations, whether they're 4 or 5 hours during the day or late into the night. And we wake up exhausted, and we just have no clarity, no resolution. We're feeling very uncertain, very doubtful. This is a very painful place to be. So in our program, we talk about why this happens. We're going to talk in a moment about some of the things you can actually do about it. It's important that we get practical tools to address this. But again, a deeper philosophy and understanding of why this stuff happens in the first place. What's driving the marathon conversation? What can we do differently? How can we show up in a way that increases the listening and understanding instead of these repetitive loops? It also happens that opposites attract. We've all heard that phrase, right? Opposites attract. So we need to understand actually why that happens, why our psyche would be attracted to someone who's opposite to us in certain ways, and why our needs oppose each other, because it has a lot to do with strengths and weaknesses and aspects of our core self, aspects of our ego that have an agenda, a hidden covert agenda that you have not explored before, that you are not aware of. Generally, the thing that your partner needs from you is the hardest thing for you to give them. And that's why a lot of this work is, like the 500-pound deadlift. It can be very difficult in a given moment to offer your partner reassurance when they need it, because there's something in you that is underdeveloped, or there's a lost part of you somewhere along the way throughout your life, a lost or underdeveloped part that has a really hard time meeting that need from your partner, for your partner. And this creates tension, this creates anxiety, creates a lot of problems for couples. So we're going to get deeper into this in the program, obviously, but generally in society, we are burned out, busy, and overstimulated in many, many different ways. And we live in a realm of hyper comparison. So we're sometimes thinking the grass is greener. We are looking at other people's relationships, perfectly curated photos online of someone else's life, comparing our position to theirs. And generally, when we feel dissatisfied with our bank account, with our career, with our body, we don't have a main quest in life that brings us deep satisfaction and purpose. We look at our partner and we say, maybe you're the reason that I'm unhappy. And we project a lot of our discomfort, a lot of our dissatisfaction onto them. And what some guys do is they replace one body with another body, one woman with another woman, or one guy with another guy. We go from relationship to relationship, experiencing generally the same patterns. And this is why the divorce rate only gets higher the more times you remarry, because people aren't learning the lesson that they need to learn in the first place. So, Ben, maybe you can talk a little bit about what we can do.
Yeah, and just before we go there, I just want to say I love all that stuff that you just said, Nick, and that you just shared. And what came up while you were sharing it was me wanting to share that there's no destination where one day you're going to be in a permanent conscious relationship. We're not selling that. There are people out there that will probably sell that to you. They'll make that pitch. You come do this training and you'll permanently have a perfect relationship. You'll be fixed. Fix your relationships, right? But I love that Nick just mentioned the gym, because just like you can't go on a regimen with a trainer to the gym for 1 year and then be healthy for the rest of your life, you can't come and read a book or do a course and then forever be in a conscious relationship. What you're coming to do in this training is to learn how to be in the gym. What are the exercises that you need to do that and do them right so you don't get hurt and so that you stay healthy. And then you can go and do that practice. Just like yoga is a practice, just like meditation is a practice. There's no destination with meditation where you're like, you think you're going to achieve enlightenment someday, you know? Consciousness is an ever unfolding thing until the day you die. And there will be ever increasing or a constant conveyor belt of things that will stimulate you, trigger you, and challenge you until the day that you die. And your relationships are like that. So we're coming into this course to learn how to do that work. And the work works. You know, I've heard many people say that, like, wow, you know, as soon as I started putting some conscious intention into this, the work is working, you know? And so 12 weeks is enough time to definitely get some momentum in that so that you can continue the practice, ideally, for the rest of your life. So, yeah, what can we do? What do we do about all these issues that Nick was just talking about? Here's some things that you can do. A, develop a new attitude and philosophy towards relationships. For me, the philosophical understanding of the deeper purpose of relationships and how relationships typically play out has helped me. It's kind of the map. Like, how do most relationships go? What are most challenges that people have? How do those challenges get resolved? What tools do most couples use? Knowing that in my own mind has really brought a sense of ease and understanding of like, oh, okay, so like, I'm not just floating out on an open ocean getting storms rain down on me with no gear anymore, not knowing where I'm going. All of a sudden I can sort of tune my sail and understand where I want to head. And I have some of those tools. I don't always use them right, but I have an idea of what to do and where to go. And sometimes I consult my friend Nick on, you know, hey, can you check my head around this? Like, what tools should I use? You know, I use people who are also in the work to reflect and help guide me forward. Another piece is understanding yourself, your own emotional patterns. Where do things go back to? When my partner like comes and takes my drink and then drinks half of it, why does that bother me so much? Like, is that just a factual like, oh, she did me wrong, or is there like a wound there from my brother? Right? For me, that's the case. That goes way back, and that's why there's a trigger, you know? So understanding my own relational patterns, like what I saw in my parents, what I experienced with them, what I experienced with my brother, and how that carries into my relationship. Again, that understanding helps me take a step back and go like, oh, so it's not all about her. You know, there's me involved here, and I have some work to do here. Other things you can do is learn the tools, learn tried and tested relational frameworks that help us see relationships from a wider, clearer lens. So much of the issues in relationship are really kind of like our egos jumping in there and like protecting us. And you know, from perhaps like a, you could say an innocent place, but when your ego's in there trying to defend you, it kind of makes things worse. So zooming out and being able to see the pattern from a wider angle, from more of a place of humility, like, okay, I'm going to just leave my ego aside here for a moment. Super useful. And again, the frameworks and the tools help us zoom out, right? And then, of course, like the specific tools like conflict resolution frameworks. What is a tool that I can use to create relational safety? If your partner's ever said to you, I don't feel safe, how can you create safety? I had no idea how to do that 10 years ago. I had no idea. So learning, oh, okay, there's a lack of safety here. Like I'm going to apply these tools here so that it can sort of open up a safe space for my partner. Because when everybody's got their armor on, when everybody's got their shields up, you're stuck. You're stuck. The first thing you need to work on is getting that armor off, getting the shields down. All right. Other things you can do: learn repair frameworks. Like, what are the proven techniques for repairing a rupture? Because every relationship has a rupture. I'm not sitting here telling you guys, I've got a conscious relationship and you guys can have one too, and everything will be great. Sometimes I do not have a conscious relationship, guys. Sometimes there are ruptures in our relationships. Sometimes we say things that we regret. Sometimes I say things that I regret. And how do I repair when there's been a rupture? That's very important. We got to have that way to come back to love because it's easy to lose the love. It's easy to lose it for everybody. It happens. So how do you get back there? How do you do it often and do it well? That's the trick. Another thing we can learn to do is how to speak from vulnerable truth, something Nick and I have worked on in men's groups for years, instead of this sort of defended, protected place. Men generally really struggle with this, and a lot of women do as well. So practicing that. We're going to share all that stuff and all of our favorite tools and all the things that have changed us, changed how we relate. We're going to share that stuff in this course. So this course operates as a men's group that moves through the content together as a cohort, and it happens live on Zoom. So we get, between 10 and 20 guys on the screen every week at the same time, and we run it kind of like a men's group. And Nick and I do that for a specific reason because this is how we met. We met each other. I actually I joined Nick's group about 10 years ago. It changed my life. It changed his life. We're still in men's groups. And so we're going to tell you for a minute why we're doing it in this way and not just some video course that you can take by yourself.
So why men's groups? As Ben said, we have our reps in with respect to running men's groups. We have put in our 10,000 hours. The experience has significantly changed our lives. And what we're doing is marrying here relationship teaching, relationship work with men's work. And the experience has been profound for the guys that have taken us up on this opportunity. For those of you that have not been in men's groups before, because most men haven't, we want to outline a couple of key reasons why we're doing this, why it works, why it's effective, and how that might benefit you. And one of the primary things that guys get from men's groups is they stop feeling like they are the only one, that they are the only one that struggles, that they are the only one that has these kinds of issues. And when you hear other men speak, you now have an experience of taking in their experience instead of quietly struggling with what you're going through. Your self-doubt, your conflict, relationship patterns, protective impulses, all the things that we're speaking to. You realize that you're not alone, right? That you're not broken or that you have the most difficult partner on the planet. You realize that, oh, wow, actually all guys are generally dealing with a lot of the same things. One of the things that happens in groups is that you get called forward. So instead of being called out or shamed or judged, the spirit of these containers and the way that Ben and I lead them is to call men forward into their personal power, into having a choice, into creating their life. So instead of the Newtonian model of thinking about things, cause and effect, we're actually causing an effect. We are the initiator of change in our life. And we encourage all men to take on that perspective and that way of being. In a healthy men's group, you are not being fixed. There is nothing wrong with you. There may be some minor refinements. There are some new approaches. There are some things you need to let go of. And in doing so, your life changes. So calling you forward is really about being challenged to show up more honestly, more transparently, maybe more courageously, maybe showing up more skillfully in your life, in your career, in your romantic relationship, not just for your partner, but for you. In these groups, we're practicing emotional safety, emotional honesty in real time. So it's one thing to talk about or prophesize about being vulnerable or being a conscious partner, but it's entirely another thing to actually feel your heart pumping as you share something with a group, to feel that maybe anxiety in your throat about the honest truth that you're withholding, and to open up, despite all that, to share with a group of men who are listening to you sincerely, with respect, with non-judgment. That's a powerful experience. And that's also rep building for your relationship. And we're emphasizing reps here because we really do need that practice. We need to get these reps in order to feel more confident with these skills and abilities.
Okay, a few other things that men learn in men's groups that are super valuable. One of them is learning how to regulate instead of react. In my 20s, if something triggered me, if there was an emotion that came up, I had a very quick reaction, and it caused a lot of problems in my relationships. And one of the things that I learned in men's group was to just slow down when I was having a feeling, to take a breath, and to not feel the need to like do something so quickly. And part of that has, sitting in a circle where you're not just allowed to speak or interrupt whenever you want. That's actually very useful, because you can have a feeling, you can be triggered by something, and you can just sit with it for a while and just breathe. We also do breath techniques and talk about ways to hold stress in our systems and to hold space for ourselves. So we learn how to regulate our nervous systems, which is super, super important, how to hold tension and to not collapse or explode under that tension. That's very needed in a romantic relationship, because any good relationship is going to go through huge stress, and also, these moments of feeling like low energy and like wanting more. There's all kinds of triggers that will come from life as it unfolds. And so we have to learn how to regulate, when things are dicey. Another thing we learned is how to rewire our understanding of what it means to be a man. A lot of us have different stories about what a real man is, right? And some misunderstandings around what it means to be a man in relationship. And some of those stories are not useful. Some of those stories are unhealthy. They're masochistic. There's ways that we can sort of pigeonhole ourselves and turn ourselves into nice guys, or not take responsibility for something that we actually should in relationship. And so coming into a men's group and opening our ears and our minds helps us break through some of those things. It doesn't happen on day one. We might hear some stuff that we're like, oh, I don't really agree with that on day one. But by week 12, we're like, I kind of see that now. We can have our minds changed in a good way. And the last thing that we're going to mention here, this is just a few of the things that come from men's groups, but we really I've been going to men's meetings for 10 years, and it's this slow, steady refinement of who you are. I go to 52 men's groups a year, and every week I'm sort of stepping up a little bit, stepping up. And some of that's through my own work that I'm doing in the group, and some of that is like mirrored or by proxy of watching another man do that work. Like I download what other men are working through and I learn from their mistakes. I learn from their lessons that they're learning, right? And so there's this slow, steady refinement of who you are into a more powerful version of you, right? So tons of benefits of men's groups. And that's why we combine the men's group format with all of these relational tools. I find that men are more open when it's just men in the room. And when there aren't women present, we can sort of drop our guard a little bit more. We can be a little bit more honest. I went to AA for 15 years, and I always looked for the AA meetings that were full just men because there was a level of honesty there that I couldn't find elsewhere. There's less performative stuff going on. And so we have this really honest, deep, safe space for men to be real together. And then we bring our relationship shit to the table and then we learn the tools together. It's really powerful. So Nick's going to talk for a minute about the expectations of this program and what we're doing here because we do have high expectations. It's not drop in. The way that we create a really strong container is by having this list of expectations.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's a little bit unreasonable, right? That we ask you to show up every week on time, present, sober, no distractions. This is how a great men's group functions, is the members are committed, present, loyal, and they're engaged, and they show up for each other every week. You got to have a good internet connection, expected to be on video. We can see your face. We can hear you when you're talking, sharing with the group. And we expect everyone to be engaged in group conversation, sharing, and exercises, some of the practices that we're doing week to week. This is not a passive program where you sit back with your feet up and have a Red Bull. You're expected to lean in. You will not be doing other things during these meetings. You will not be working or sending emails or cooking dinner. This requires your full presence and your full attention. Also, we expect the meetings to be confidential. This is an agreement that we create in the first session with all the men. Everyone raises their hand to agree that all the personal details that are shared here stay here. That stuff doesn't go outside the meeting. Obviously, we can talk about the teachings, the things that we're learning personally, but we do not share about anyone else's experience. That is important. One thing that my mentor shared with me early on about men's groups is that there's no booze, no broads, no blood sports, and no business. And using the term, broad might sound crude, but he used it because he liked the alliteration on the B's. And, I think it cuts through to something that's true for men, which is that if we're not drinking, we're not chasing women or sexual partners, we're not watching a fight or a basketball game, we're not conducting business, what are we doing here, right? There's no food, there's no snacks. Like, what is this about? And when I first got started in men's groups, I had the same question. What is this? Like, what are we going to do here? What are these meetings about? And that uncertainty and that unknown can actually be intimidating for men because they're thinking, what's going to happen in this group? Is this a drum ceremony? Is this a cult? Like, what's going on? And what guys learn is that through personal sharing, there's something extremely powerful about the experience of a men's group for some of the reasons we've previously cited and more, which is that, men tend to build each other up and see each other's value and reflect that back to one another in these groups. And we also learn and get perspective and sometimes make good friends. These meetings are going to be a mix of personal sharing, focused personal sharing, answering certain inquiries, sharing with a group. There will be teachings presented. There will be real-time practice and integration of the tools and skills that we want you to learn. And from time to time, generally every meeting for at least 5 minutes, we will do something embodiment related, which could be breath work, push-ups, qigong, a somatic visualization, an orientation to the body in some way. We spend a lot of time in our heads. We spend a lot of time looking at our computers, and this also happens to be an online training. So we try to mix it up a little bit, give a little 5-minute break in the middle of the 2-hour meeting every week, but also just do something physical, do something grounding. and give you some practices that you might have not tried before that could be extremely beneficial to you.
Okay, guys, so congratulations. You made it to the end of the presentation. If you've got questions about this program, you want to know more about it after reading through the rest of this page about the Conscious Relationship Council, you can always email me at ben@evolvingman.com. You can also connect with Nick at connect@nicksolacek.com. We run this program for 12 weeks, once a week for 2 hours, once a year, maybe twice a year. Nick and I are busy. I'm running retreats. I have the Evolving Man podcast. I'm running Arca Brotherhood. I'm co-director of Arca Brotherhood, which is a men's group organization. You can check out Arca Brotherhood if you're interested in more men's group stuff. And I've got the podcast. Nick has a podcast. Nick sees couples. Highly Successful Couples is Nick's podcast, and he's got a private practice where he works with couples. So if you want to work with him with your partner, you can reach out to him about that. But if you want to know more about this program and you want to register for the next cohort of this program, what we always do is post the upcoming dates. And so if we just finished a cohort and we decided we're not going to run any for another year, you might see dates for a year from now on this page. But we're always going to update it. So at this moment of recording, we've got a training coming up in the fall of 2025, and registration is open for that. But we're going to constantly keep that updated for you so you can register when we keep running this course. Other than that, send us a message if you have questions, if you're interested, if you've got feedback. And yeah, thanks for listening and hearing what we've got to share here. I really believe in what we're offering. I really enjoy running this course with Nick. We've got good energy together. We bring good energy to the calls. It's not boring. It's not like sitting in a classroom, like Nick was just saying. It's very interactive. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're in a relationship, not in a relationship, married, divorced, have kids or no kids. We will spotlight you at some point, once or twice during the training, and we will work on your stuff with the guys. And you don't need to be intimidated by that, because we're all just very real in this workshop, and we're here for the same reason, to be better and to look under our own waters and see into our unconscious and use the consciousness of other men to grow and to wake up, to bring the light into the darkness. So come with us, join us, and we look forward to having you with us in the Conscious Relationship Council.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for watching, being the kind of person who watches a presentation like this, and I hope I get a chance to meet with you soon.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.